Well, thank you, and I'm very delighted and very honored to have been chosen to be the moderator for this distinguished evening. This is quite a gathering. I want to start by, first of all, thanking Chapman University for hosting this event. I want to also recognize Professor Tom Campbell, the Dean of the Law School. Dean, thank you so much. Where is he? You know, Dean, I want you to know that I came here to speak 7 years ago, and I was honored to do so then. I practiced law for almost 10 years in the Middle East, and I guarantee you that even after those years, you'll have a lot to tell me, because I probably could learn a little bit from you as well. I want to take a moment to express the regrets of Congressman Ed Royce, chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. He was going to join you this evening, and he very much wished to be here. Unfortunately, back in Washington, the House of Representatives is electing the chairman of their committees in the House tonight. And so he could not be here. He had to be back in Washington. Hopefully he will have been reelected as chairman. But he conveyed to me and conveyed to us, the organizers of the event, his sincerest apologies and wish that in the end, while he may not be here physically with you, he very much is here with you in spirit. Okay, Professor, it's now your turn. Professor Ali Parsa is a professor of history and humanities and scholar of philosophy of history, Islamic and religious studies at California State University at Fullerton. You were born in Tehran in 1953. That makes you 3 years younger than me, okay? And having a master's in Islamic studies from UCLA and a master's of history and a PhD in history from UCLA as well. Professor, you have written many articles in a book in philosophy of history, The Mind of the Historian, Causation of Philosophy of History, and you've taught Middle East history and world history at UCLA Pepperdine. I can't think of a more distinguished person to be here tonight to fill in the gaps of what I clearly have left here in my introductory remarks. Professor?
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for introduction. It was a little bit overdone. It was overdone. But I really want to thank, first of all, Chapman University for allowing this to happen. And furthermore, the Syrian Institute for Progress, which also was very much involved in sponsoring this, along with the Iranian Society, California Society for Democracy in Iran. I am extremely pleased and excited to share this wonderful evening with the Syrian brothers and sisters. This is a very unique occasion. This is the first time this is happening, along with my lovely American friends and peace lovers who I see they are here because they feel they have to support an important cause. The reason we are here together is the testimony to the fact that the struggle that we share with Syrian brothers and sisters, mothers and fathers, and a struggle that we share with the rest of the people in the Middle East is a global struggle, is a struggle for freedom, is a struggle for dignity of individual human being.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you very much. You may have heard just a few days ago that there's been a secret series of letters that have been exchanged between the president and the supreme leader, Khamenei. I guarantee you that they're not love letters. But the one thing that is quite evident to me, the credibility of the United States has been tested and tested again, and the people who are testing it are not the Syrians or the Iranians, but it's the American people who are asking, where is the credibility of the American government on the promises that we have made to the Iranian people and to the Syrian people. Okay? You know, Congressman Royce has been a champion of everything that you and I believe in. That is the most important thing that we must never, ever, ever forsake, and that's our word and our credibility. Oh, when the president said there was a red line after the use of chemical weapons, his aides went out before to the White House to spin the fact, oh, he didn't really mean that, okay? We'll never restore freedom and dignity to the Middle East until America keeps its word, okay? Now, Kerry Kennedy, her life has been devoted to the vindication and protection of human rights. She established the Robert F. Kennedy Memorial Center for Human Rights in 1988, and she worked on diverse human rights issues such as child labor, disappearances, etc. She is chair of the Amnesty International Leadership Council. She traveled all the way here from the East Coast to be with you. Please welcome, we're honored to have Kerry Kennedy.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you, Chapman University, for hosting this, and Dean Campbell, thank you again. Professor, Ambassador, fellow panelists, and all of you for being here. The struggle against the Iranian regime, the Assad dictatorship, and the Islamic State is not simply a struggle against extremism. It is also a struggle for human rights. As Americans, we enjoy the blessings of the world's strongest democracy. Our democracy is not perfect, but by and large, we all enjoy the rights to free speech and free expression. We can profess whatever faith we believe in. We have a right to choose our leaders, and we are protected by the rule of law. These are the cornerstones of our government, the means by which we enjoy life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as Thomas Jefferson so famously put it in the Declaration of Independence. As a nation, we have both an obligation and an interest to stand for those rights, both at home and around the world, wherever they are threatened. For it is only where those fundamental rights are protected that human dignity can flourish. And I just want to say something about this group of people tonight. It is extraordinary what you have done. It is extraordinary to see, to walk the halls of Congress and see the power of the Iranian people, to see the power of all the people in this room. What you have managed to do in this country in the last 30 years to assert who you are and what you want and your love of freedom and your love of democracy that has resonated on both sides of the political aisle is deeply, deeply impressive. And that is incredibly powerful. It's an extraordinary tool. And I believe, because of all of the things that I've seen around the world in the last 30, 40 years, that you will prevail. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kerry. I want to now introduce Professor Saeed Mujtahid. He's president of the Syrian Institute of Progress, SIP, an organization that focuses on addressing and supporting the needs of Syrian refugees. He's continued to provide his expert advice to the United States government on the changes that are affecting Syria in order to help provide a pathway out and the right policy for the United States. He's an activist in the Arab American community. I've known him by reputation, and I know that many of you here not only will find his comments fascinating, but I'm sure that you'll walk out of here even more educated than before. Thank you.
Good evening. Assalamu alaikum. it's really inspiring to see everyone here, Syrian, American, Iranian, American, and American at large. It's beautiful to have such a powerful panelist here. And I really want to thank also the organization, California Society for Democracy in Iran, for joining us in this event. I hope this is just the beginning and the start, because I think our administration is truly taking a back seat and leading behind both on the Syrian and the Iranian issue. And more so on Iran, because it's been since 1979, and we Syrians certainly don't have that patience. We're already been in 4 years into a destructive, continued bombardment by the Syrian regime, a criminality that history witnessed that never seen before. And that revolution of the Syrian revolution, it will go in history as the most courageous fight for liberty that started from the youth, not from my generation.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we conclude, I'm going to ask Professor Rotunda to come up for a second to just have a couple of remarks to join us up here. Professor Rotunda is an associate professor of military and international law and executive director here at Chapman of the Institute for Military Personnel, Veterans, Human Rights, and International Law, and the American Veterans Legal Clinic. That is a mouthful, but boy, you must do some great work. Come on up.
I'm a professor here at Chapman, but I began my career as an Army officer. I was an officer in the JAG Corps. That's what we call our lawyers in the military. And my first experience with radical Islamism was, frankly, at Walter Reed on 9/11. I was serving at the hospital there when we received victims of the Pentagon, and I was on call to help retire those victims of the Pentagon who we knew would not make it through the night. I then also became a criminal lawyer. I prosecuted, and I was an international human rights and operational lawyer. And in advance of deployment, I went through a training program where we learned a little bit about Iran and some of the things that happened there. And as part of that training, I observed a video of a woman who was stoned in Iran after having no due process, in a procedure that didn't recognize the rule of law, no opportunity to be heard. And so tonight I just wanted to comment a little bit on some of the issues in particular that are facing women. And I just want to suggest here that a human rights violation can never be cured by further human rights violations.
That's right.
That two wrongs do not make a right. And I really agree with Marian Rajavi. What a courageous woman she is. Yeah. She's the president of the National Council of Resistance in Iran, and how incredibly courageous she is to stand up where she is, in the era where she is, against these kinds of things. And her platform, I think, is so incredible. And what she calls for is free elections, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, separation of church and state, complete, unequivocal gender equity. And she also calls for a modern legal system that will be anchored in the rule of law, that will honor that which exists in all of us, that will honor our fundamental human rights, where degrading, torturous punishment will no longer have a place in the justice system. And I think what's so important about her is that she's an inspiring figure that comes from within. And democracy means voice of the people. And so while the modern world and America must in fact and indeed support these efforts around the world, you can't do it without that support. We must support, we must encourage, we must be there to help in every way that we can. But I think it's so inspiring that there are leaders stepping up so courageous as she is. And there's been a wonderful impact. In fact, there was recently a protest where thousands of people came out, many of them women, risking acid attacks themselves. And a lot of it was spurred by social media. And so I think that's one of the good news stories, is all the courage that's happening in some of the reform. And as a result of that, there have been some prosecutions or investigations are underway to try and find these people that perpetrated these attacks on women. So thank you again for coming tonight. Thank you again for giving me an opportunity to just offer a few thoughts and remarks.
I close by merely asking you one thing, to not only write to your member of Congress, but to remember, despite our divisions, despite sometimes our, shall we say, vocal opinions that we express, when we send an American abroad to fight to protect us, we should stand united to make sure they come home safe and secure. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us tonight.